capital on. I was holding this up. And the guy's he was starting international banking. I said, the Japanese, they're hereditary, what do you want to call it, genetics. Yeah. Japanese are savers, which is why they're stupid. But they save yen.
Right.
I'm going, I don't even want to save this piece of toilet paper, the dollar. But the Japanese save yen. So I want you to be disrespectful to my race. I'm fourth generation Japanese American. Would you save yen today?
No, you wouldn't. I wouldn't want to save dollars either. And while it's easy to see the dollar is going up against all the other currencies over the last couple of years, it's crashing against assets.
Yeah.
So it's down on real estate, it's down on stocks. But if you want, let me tell you what's actually being planned by the big bank organizations that they're trying to put in place right now. And so if we look at the world in like this org chart, above us, we have like these policy makers. And so that would be, the policy enforcers would be like the governments. Above that are the policy makers. And so these are like the World Economic Forum. We have the Club of Rome, these types of things. You mentioned Kissinger. So Kissinger is really the one that kind of put all this together. Above that, we have the central banks. And then above the central banks, we have the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, right?
Yeah. And they just made gold and silver tier 1 assets.
Right.
Gold.
So they, Mayor Rothschild famously said, give me control over nations' money. I care not who makes its laws.
Right.
So
I love that.
Right. And
Say it again.
Give me control over nations' money. I care not who makes its laws.
Amen. I want everybody to hear this. They're doing so much just to figure out what is money.
Yeah.
What is money? And I've been a real simple dude. Like I said, I hold up a little silver dollar and it's got copper on it. It says, this is not money.
Right.
That was 1964.
Yeah.
So today, all I do is save real silver and my gold.
Yeah.
But the issue today, I want all the listeners of this Rich Dad Radio Show is, what is money?
Right.
What are you working for? What are you saving? And how do you plan to survive into the future if what you think is money, what your mommy and daddy taught you or what the school system taught you is money, isn't money?
What I like to say, Robert, is something a little shocking just to get people's attention. But I say, none of us want money. We don't want money. What we want is the things that money buys us, the goods and services, right? And so then I think about this like adversarial, because if we're going into the we are going into this central bank digital currency world where they'll have total control, just like when the government seized gold in 1933. But if we were in 1933 and they seized all your money, all the gold in the bank, how would you have protected yourself? Well, if I didn't have gold in the bank, instead I had a ranch with 200 head of cattle, I wasn't affected. If I had a general store and I was selling supplies in town, I wasn't really affected. And so I didn't have all my money in their financial system. I had real wealth. I had goods and services. And so, to the point of having gold or assets outside of the financial system. So as they continue to usher the system in, if we're outside of that system, then we can protect ourselves.
I understand. What's happening to me, Mark, is that CNN and CNBC stopped inviting me on their program.
You were telling the truth.
Well, it's that because I speak against their advertising.
Right.
But this Friday, CNBC called, and I'm going to be on CNBC, so I'm kind of choosing my words carefully because I'm going back onto the program. But I'll say here on Rich Dad Radio, I simply don't invest in anything I can print.
Right.
I want nothing that can be printed.
That's right.
So like you have this dollar bill, you can print that. You can print an ETF, exchange traded fund.
Yep.
And people think, oh, that's as good as gold. The SLV is a silver ETF.
Right.
But you can sell that ETF as many times as you like. It's called hypothecation.
Yeah.
So the whole banking system, as Mayor Amschel Rothschild said, I care not who makes the rules, let me control the money.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, the Rich Dad Radio Show is creative, so you take control of your money. This is not money. This is toilet paper.
How does Bitcoin fit into this big picture of CBDCs, the BIS, everything that's happening?
Yeah. So, Bitcoin is a ledger system, right? It tracks who has the asset at the certain time. So in the
for those who don't know what a ledger is, when you play the cash flow game,
yeah,
it's called the income statement and balance sheet.
Yeah.
That's a ledger system.
Yeah. See, when I had gold in my hand, it's a physical object. And everyone in the world knows I have the gold because I'm holding the gold. And if I hand the gold to you, now you have the gold. Everybody knows it because you have the gold. But in a world where we move into an information age, then a ledger tracks who's holding the gold. But now I have to trust whoever's holding the ledger. But it did that in order to speed things up, because to move gold across the country or across the world was very slow, the final settlement. So now the bank holds the gold and they just mark on the ledger from Mark's account to Sarah's account. So now it happens very quickly. Well, the BIS, the CBDCs, they want to create a new ledger that they can control, and they just keep track of who has it, sort of like we do now. But instead of each country having their own financial system and their own ledgers, they just want to keep a ledger for the whole world. Because, of course, Rothschild said, give me control of the money. And so they want to create a unified ledger for the whole world. But the problem is that requires trust. And over and over and over again, we find out that we can't trust them. Because, of course, human nature is always going to want to manipulate and steal. So Bitcoin is also a ledger, but it's a decentralized ledger that nobody can control. So no one has the power to control it or change it. It's completely decentralized. And so it's what we call trustless. So instead of needing to trust in Bitcoin, we say don't trust, verify. Because it's an open ledger, everyone can see it. It's open source. So we can always see, hey, there's this address has this many, this address has this many. When the transaction happens, everyone can see that at the same time. So this is a very key piece, because as the world is losing trust, I talked about that earlier, we need a trustless ledger that nobody can control. And that's where Bitcoin fits in. Another key piece with Bitcoin is, again, going back to the information age, is it allows us to transact peer-to-peer without needing to go through those trusted intermediaries. And Robert asked the question, what is money? And he talked about the Japanese holding their money or their savings in the yen, in cash. But the problem is, like, what is money? It's a big question. But one thing that money is like it stores my energy. I worked today. Right. I don't need that money, so I store it in money to be used later. Right. It's like a battery. Right?
Gold and silver are very intense. They hold energy tight.
Right.
Very, very.
They don't have leakage.
Yeah.
They don't have
very, very tight source of energy, and it costs about 10 times or 20 times more for gold to produce than for silver. That's the price difference. Gold takes more energy.
Right. So I think it's a very simple question. Most people would know the answer to. Would you rather your money buy you more goods and services in the future or less?
More.
And of course, more. And so that means you would want to store it in a battery that would keep that charge and not lose it over time. Well, the goal for the fiat money system is to lose 2% of its charge per year. Right now, it's losing about 7 or 8, depending on how you want to measure it. And so Bitcoin is a fixed supply, never more than 21 million. So there's no leakage. There's no inflation to that number. And so for the first time in human history, the father of the Austrian School of Economics, Ludwig von Mises, says that there's no such thing as a constant in economics, because oil's changing, gold's changing, wheat's changing, but now we have it. Bitcoin is a constant, 21 million. So it's a change, but ultimately I think it's, like I said, it's a decentralized ledger, trustless system. And in the world, as the world continues to break apart and trust continues to get lost, it's the only solution.
And then this here is a silver buffalo. It's about an ounce. What was this in 1991, silver?
1991, silver was about $3.75 an ounce, got down to $2.75 an ounce. That's when Warren Buffett purchased a bunch of, the silver. And then here we are at $25 an ounce. So had a pretty good run.
And I still say to people, like I talk to everybody about gold and silver, because I don't save dollars. When I have extra money, I buy gold and silver and I keep it in a vault far away from my home. I had a friend who stood on stage with me. He says, "Yeah, I buy gold and silver and I keep it in my home." I said, "Why don't you just invite everybody over?" The idiot.
Yeah, right.
You never keep it at home, right?
Oh no, never keep it at home. Yeah.
I don't save cash. I save gold and silver, tangible, real. I don't have any paper gold or silver. I have no ETF. You can buy a silver ETF. It's under SLV, and gold ETF is GLV. That's paper gold and paper silver. Do you have any comments, Kevin? We're closing right now, about persons saving gold, paper, GLD, or SLV ETFs.
Yeah, that would be like someone giving us a phone call and I said, "Hey, look, I'll sell you the gold, and then I'm going to deliver 80% of it over to HSBC Bank in Hong Kong or over in Great Britain. That's where it's going to be held, but it's not 100% in gold. Would you do it?" Most people would say no. Okay, well then why are you doing GLD or SLV? You're not getting 100% backing of gold, and it's held somewhere else that you could never get a hold of it. I don't think anybody would really want to do that if they thought about it long enough.
Yep. He's talking about the difference between buying what I call fake gold, and fake gold's an ETF, like what Tony Robbins and all those guys promote. I don't like fake. I like real. I don't want paper. I don't want futures contracts. I want the real stuff. So we take delivery of it. Now, what we don't tell people is where do we deliver it to? And the reason for that, Andy, I was at this conference, and this guy stood up. Of course, he's an attorney because, they're not the brightest guys on earth. He stands up there and says, yeah, I take delivery for all my gold and I keep it at my house. And this other guy stood up and said to him, well, why don't you just give us your address so we can steal it from you, you idiot? So I want to let you know, when you take delivery, it doesn't mean keep it at your house. You've got to find somebody else. Is that correct, Kim? So we send our cheap-ass dollars, these things here. We buy their gold, silver, oil, copper. We pay them with fake money, but the Chinese go there and actually make their economy stronger via infrastructure. And I've seen these large campuses of Chinese people. I'm going, holy mackerel, this is the last 10 years. That's what Andy's talking about here. So when you see it, you go, what the hell is the U.S. doing? So this here is a silver coin. This is about $35 today. I mean, everybody in the world can afford $35, but they'd rather hang on to this toilet paper here. And this is a gold coin. And this is March 2023, $30. This is about 2,000 something. And I think this is the biggest bargain of all, is this silver, because silver is consumed in everything. All the solar panels, these a Tomahawk missile, got 30 pounds of silver in it, it goes boom in the desert. EV, electronic vehicles, all going to burn this stuff here. And everybody can afford $35. But will they do it? No, they're going to hang on to this garbage here. Let me say one more thing. There's a thing called Triffin's Dilemma. Triffin's Dilemma meant that for the U.S. to be the world's money, reserve currency in 1944, they had to print extra of this. So the whole world had this in their banks all over the world. They have more of this stuff than any other product in history. This is toilet paper. And what that guy was saying from Kenya is when this stuff starts coming back in, it's just not how much they printed, it's how much they've had in storage, because they had to be able to buy oil in this stuff here. So what's going to come back is a tidal wave of this toilet paper upon America. And this little $35 coin here, I don't like to make predictions, but I'd rather have this than this here. And it's really tough to get people to say, no, I'd rather have toilet paper. It makes no sense to me. So please explain what Miles Franklin does. And for full disclosure, I am a customer of